My name is Sarah Williams, I am 32 years old, and I grew up in a small town called Greystone Valley, where everyone knows everyone and secrets never stay hidden for long. My family lived on Maple Street in a big old house that always looked warm from the outside, but inside it was often full of tension, expectations, and emotional pressure. I was always known as the responsible one, the daughter who worked hard, stayed quiet, and fixed problems without complaining, while my older sister Laura, who was 37, was seen as the charming and favored one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. Over the years, I worked extremely hard and managed to build a stable life for myself. I bought 2 properties on my own, one of them being the very house where my family was currently living. I never asked for praise or attention, but I often ended up helping them financially anyway. I paid for my father's medical expenses when his insurance failed, helped repair the family home after storms, and even supported my sister's struggling restaurant business when she said she had no other options. In total, I had given more than $120,000 over the years. But every time I needed repayment or accountability, I was told the same thing: "We are family, Sarah. Don't treat us like strangers." And because I didn't want conflict, I stayed silent. Everything changed 3 weeks before Christmas when I noticed something unusual with my financial records. A mortgage had been opened in my name for $250,000 against my own property. I had never signed any such document. At first, I thought it was a bank error, but as I dug deeper, I realized something much worse was happening. My signature had been forged, my personal information had been misused, and my mail had even been redirected without my knowledge. It was a carefully planned setup designed to hide the truth from me until it was too late. When I hired a lawyer and began a formal investigation, the truth slowly came out. The money from the fraudulent mortgage had not disappeared, it had been distributed directly into my own family's accounts. Around $150,000 went to my sister Laura's restaurant, which she claimed was barely surviving, $60,000 went to my father, and $40,000 went to my mother. Everything connected back to them. The more I learned, the more it became clear that this was not a mistake or misunderstanding, it was deliberate. A system had been created to use my identity, my property, and my trust without my consent. What hurt the most was realizing that I had already been financially supporting them for years. I had helped them with debts, bills, emergencies, and business failures, believing I was doing the right thing for my family. But instead of honesty, they had built dependence on me and eventually crossed a line I never thought they would cross: identity fraud. When I confronted my lawyer, I remember sitting in silence for a long time, unable to process how people I trusted completely had turned my life into a financial resource. A few days later, I received a Christmas Eve invitation. The party was being held at my property, the same house that was legally mine but being occupied by them. Something about it felt wrong immediately. I decided to go, not to celebrate, but to understand the situation with my own eyes. When I arrived, I didn't enter right away. I stood outside in the cold, listening through the door, and what I heard changed everything. Inside, I heard my father raising a toast. He said loudly, "Thank God Sarah didn't come. No one wants her here anyway." My sister laughed and added hurtful comments about me always acting superior, while my mother agreed that I would eventually come back like always. The room filled with laughter, completely unaware that I was standing just a few steps away, listening to every word. It wasn't just rejection, it was humiliation, spoken casually as if I meant nothing to them despite everything I had done. At that moment, something inside me finally broke, but not in a weak way. It broke in a way that gave me clarity. I quietly stepped back from the door, walked to my car, and called my lawyer. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady when I told him to begin legal action immediately. That call marked the end of hesitation and the beginning of consequences. On Christmas Eve, while they were still inside celebrating, law enforcement arrived at the house. The court order had already been prepared through the fraud investigation. My parents and sister were officially named in the case, and they were required to leave the property immediately. What was once a festive family gathering turned into confusion and shock in a matter of minutes. The officers explained everything calmly, but the truth hit the room like a wave no one was prepared for. For the first time, I walked into the situation not as the daughter trying to keep peace, but as the legal owner of the property and the person the law was protecting. The atmosphere inside the house changed instantly, voices rose, excuses were made, and blame was thrown around, but none of it could change what had already been proven through documents, bank records, and signatures. After that night, everything unraveled. The mortgage was officially declared fraudulent, the funds were traced, and legal consequences followed. My sister faced criminal charges for fraud, my parents were held accountable for their involvement, and the entire situation became a formal court case. The emotional damage was heavy, but the truth was undeniable and documented. In the weeks that followed, I didn't feel happiness or revenge. What I felt was silence. A strange kind of peace that comes when chaos finally stops. I focused on rebuilding my life properly. I rented my property to responsible tenants, focused on my career, and started therapy to understand how I had allowed myself to be used for so long without seeing the signs. Slowly, I learned how to set boundaries without guilt. The biggest lesson I learned from everything is this: family should never be used as permission for betrayal, and love should never require you to sacrifice your dignity or your security. Helping others is kindness, but losing yourself for them is not love, it is damage. And sometimes, the strongest decision a person can make is not to forgive blindly, but to finally choose themselves and walk away from what keeps breaking them.